Tess looked alarmed. Her father possibly could go behind the eternal cloud so soon, notwithstanding this sudden greatness. "But where is father?" she asked again. Her mother put on a deprecating look. "Now don't you be bursting out angry. The poor man, he felt so rafted after his upbringing by the parson's news that he went up to Rolliver's half an hour ago. He do want to get up his strength for his journey to-morrow, with that load of beehives which must be delivered, family or no. He'll have to start shortly after 12 tonight, as the distance is so long." "Get up his strength?" said Tess impetuously, the tears welling to her eyes. "Oh, my God! Go to a public house to get up his strength, and you as well as agreed as he, mother?" Her rebuke and her mood seemed to fill the whole room, and to impart a cowed look to the furniture and candle and the children playing about it, and to her mother's face. "No," said the latter touchily. "I be not agreed. I have been waiting for 'ee to bide and keep house while I go fetch him." "I'll go." "Oh no, Tess. You see, it wouldn't be no use." Tess did not expostulate. She knew what her mother's objection meant. Mrs Durbeyfield's jacket and bonnet were already hanging slyly on the chair by her side, in readiness of this contemplated jaunt, the reason for which the matron deplored more than its necessity. "And take the complete fortune teller to the outhouse," Joan continued, rapidly wiping her hands and donning her garments. The complete fortune teller was an old thick volume which lay on a table at her elbow, so worn by pocketing that the margins had reached the edge of the type. Tess took it up, and her mother started. This going to hunt up her shiftless husband at the inn was one of Mrs Durbeyfield's still extant enjoyments in the muck and muddle of rearing children. To discover him at Rolliver's, to sit there for an hour or two by his side, and dismiss all thought and care of the children during the interval, made her happy. A sort of halo, an occidental glow came over life then. Troubles and other realities took on themselves a metaphysical impalpability, sinking to mere mental phenomena for serene contemplation, and no longer stood as pressing concretions which chafed body and soul. The youngsters, not immediately within sight, seemed rather bright and desirable appurtenances than otherwise. The incidents of daily life were not without humorousness and jollity in their aspect there. She felt a little as she used to feel when she sat by her now wedded husband in the same spot during his wooing, shutting her eyes to his defects of character, and regarding him only in his ideal presentation as lover. Tess, being left alone with the younger children, went first to the outhouse with the fortune-telling book, and stuffed it into the thatch. A curious fetishistic fear of this grimy volume on the part of her mother prevented her ever allowing it to stay in the house all night, and whither it was brought back whenever it had been consulted. Between the mother, with her fast-perishing lumber of superstitions, folklore, dialect, and orally transmitted ballads, and the daughter, with her trained national teachings and standard knowledge under an infinitely revised code, there was a gap of 200 years as ordinarily understood. When they were together, the Jacobean and the Victorian ages were juxtaposed. Returning along the garden path, Tess mused on what her mother would have wished to ascertain from that book on this particular day. She guessed the recent ancestral discovery to bear upon it, but did not divine that it solely concerned herself. Dismissing this, however, she busied herself with sprinkling the linen dried during the day, in company with her 9-year-old brother Abraham and her sister Eliza Louisa of 12½, called Lisa Lou, the youngest ones being put to bed. There was an interval of 4 years and more between Tess and the next of the family, the two who had filled the gap having died in their infancy, and this lent her a deputy maternal attitude when she was alone with her juniors. Next in juvenility to Abraham came two more girls, Hope and Modesty, then a boy of 3, and then the baby, who had just completed his first year. All these young souls were passengers in the Durbeyfield ship, entirely dependent on the judgment of the two Durbeyfield adults for their pleasures, their necessities, their health, even their existence. If the heads of the Durbeyfield household chose to sail into difficulty, disaster, starvation, disease, degradation, death, thither were these half-dozen little captives under hatches compelled to sail with them. 6 helpless creatures who had never been asked if they wished for life on any terms, much less if they wished for it on such hard conditions as were involved in being of the shiftless house of Durbeyfield. Some people would like to know whence the poet, whose philosophy is in these days deemed as profound and trustworthy as his song is breezy and pure, gets his authority for speaking of nature's holy plan. It grew later, and neither father nor mother reappeared. Tess looked out of the door and took a mental journey through Marlott. The village was shutting its eyes. Candles and lamps were being put out everywhere, and she could inwardly behold the extinguisher and the extended hand. Her mother's fetching simply meant one more to fetch. Tess began to perceive that a man in indifferent health who proposed to start on a journey before 1 in the morning ought not to be at an inn at this late hour celebrating his ancient blood. "Abraham," she said to her little brother, "do you put on your hat, you bain't afraid, and go up to Rolliver's and see what has gone with father and mother." The boy jumped promptly from his seat and opened the door, and the night swallowed him up. Half an hour passed yet again. Neither man, woman, nor child returned. Abraham, like his parents, seemed to have been limed and caught by the ensnaring inn. "I must go myself," she said. Liza Lu then went to bed, and Tess, locking them all in, started on her way up the dark and crooked lane or street not made for hasty progress, a street laid out before inches of land had value, and when one-handed clocks sufficiently subdivided the day. End of chapter 3